Hey everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of Becoming a Trusted Voice. In this podcast, we talk about how you can build a reputation online to match your reputation in person. I believe that there's a big shift happening in marketing over the next 10 years, and that shift is greatly affecting how B2B organizations build trust and expand their reach of customers that they're ultimately serving. And with that, I began to see a paradigm shift take place in marketing that really changes the way we approach our strategies, our content, and ultimately how we create value. And so in this episode, I want to unpack the general idea of what I began to see unfold and even my own personal journey and how I am navigating some of these changes. So in 2020, I began to see in the market a shift from a neutral tone in messaging and in branding to more of I'll describe it as activist led approach to marketing. And that created this polarizing climate in the marketplace where audiences that were hearing some of these activist led marketing campaigns were either engaging with the activists or were greatly put off by some of the messaging that was coming out of many of these marketing campaigns. And a prime example of this would be Bud Light, or even some of the things that Target has done during the month of June, or even Disney has done to some of the content that was originally meant to be family focused or family appropriate, which is now really laced with an activist flair to some of the content that they're creating. All of that said, we are now in a climate where a lot of the activist led marketing has created a desire for people to engage with brands that share the same values that they share. And not only has that laid a foundation for organizations that are speaking the values and sharing the values of the audience to resonate with the audience ears, but it's also created a climate where the audience now expects the brands and the people in which they do business with to understand the world they want to live in and are participating actively in creating that world. And so a prime example of this is what I have summarized in a framework I call the Trusted Voice Framework. And essentially the Trusted Voice Framework takes our understanding that we are in a values-based economy where brands need to align with the values that they hold as an organization and match those values with the audience they want to serve. But in addition to that, brands need to understand what is our audience actually aspiring to accomplish in their life beyond the boundaries of our products and services, and then understand where does our product and service fit within the journey of their journey towards the aspiration that they're hoping to achieve. And so in that, the trusted voice framework really unpacks this idea of understanding the subjects in which you can speak to that relate to your business, the problems you solve, the services you offer, and align that with the routines of your audience, the things that go wrong, what I've described as threats of your audience, and then also the opinions that your audience holds, the point of view that your audience holds. And you tie that all together to help them move closer towards their aspiration. And so I describe this as the SARTO method: S for subject, A for aspiration, R for routine, T for threat, O for opinion. And when you take all of those things and combine them together, it actually positions your brand to show up like a friend to your audience. Because if you think about it, most people love to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And because of that, there is a immediate sense of trust because the person who's speaking to you shares an understanding of where you want to go, what you're actively putting your hands to, some of the things that may have gone wrong, and your perspective on those things. And many of our friends can meet us where we're at and empathize with us where we're at because they understand the bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish. The challenge today in marketing is that most brands are faceless. And because they're faceless, they're speaking in a way that's not necessarily aligning with the aspiration of the audience or the things that they're actively doing. It's almost always concentrated on, do you have this problem? Buy this. Do you have this pain? Buy this. And it doesn't really speak to how buying that aligns with the world they want to create or the aspiration they're striving towards. And it doesn't always line up with maybe the point of view that the audience holds. And so good marketing encompasses a strong understanding of their audience. And that is what Trusted Voice does. And so I actually help organizations through audience research understand the context that their audience is viewing their products and services from. And then from that audience research, I help brands position themselves as a friend to the audience through a personal brand or a mutual contact that the organization is engaging with and that the buyer or the audience already has trust with, so that this partnership between brands, trusted voices, and audiences can be made, which allow for products and services to be moved. So, with that as a backdrop, one of the things that I'm on the journey of doing is establishing this ecosystem of trust. So, I, as a consultant, work with brands, but I have to align myself with voices of trust or trusted voices that are in relationship with the customers I want to do business with and add value to those trusted voices, which become advocates to my future customer that they need to do business with me. So, how am I doing that? Well, one of the things I've understood is that there are a lot of marketers in the marketing space that are um, thought leaders, they're communicators, they're people who teach frameworks, they're people who understand how to master marketing. And in that, they are always intaking volumes of information. They're always learning. They're mavens. If you think about it in Malcolm Gladwell's words, they love to learn things and they love to then share it with their audience. And so those people are actually my trusted voices that I need to make sure that I'm adding value to, because those trusted voices have relationships on more of a coaching and advisory relationship with my future customer. And the only way for that customer to even trust or do business with me means that my message needs to come out of the mouth of someone they already trust. And so in the B2C space, right, the consumer side of marketing, uh, we know this as influencer marketing, where brands partner with an individual who maybe has a following on their social platform, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. And that person is demonstrating why they love that product, sharing their personal experiences with that product or service in the content they create. And because that individual has created that content, now the followers who know, like, and trust this influencer are more likely to buy. And that's where the whole affiliate marketing, influencer marketing ecosystem exists. Well, this model is very rarely applied to the B2B side of the world. And what we're seeing now in 2020 is this emphasis on the B2B version of influencer marketing. And I've always been a big advocate of word of mouth marketing. I would consider what I do as a marketing consultant a boutique service, right? So it's not something that I could necessarily advertise on a billboard or run commercials and hope that the people who saw my ads are my ideal clients. It really does take a individual who has done business with me or who has experienced some value that I've created to share their experience of how that value helped them with someone who might want to do business with me. And because of that word of mouth testimonial or referral, I now have an opportunity to add value to the person that they know. And so in the same way, this framework amplifies this word of mouth referral partnership that takes place in the digital marketing and in real life marketing. So let's kind of unpack this more practically. The first thing you have to really do is demonstrate authority. You have to show what you're doing and the results you're doing out loud and let people see those results. And as they see those results, they're taking on the desire to then try to implement those results or that approach in their own business. And so it's that learning out loud that really creates this curiosity for people to follow along and see what's working and how you're applying it and how it's creating value for you. And so it's one thing to have a framework like Trusted Voice and tell people all about it from like a thought leader's perspective, saying, here is this theoretical approach to marketing, and here's my theoretical path, and here's what here's my hypothesis on how it might add value to you. That's one thing, but people really aren't motivated to take action until they see results. But it's another thing if I told you that I create content regularly on LinkedIn, and as a result of creating that content, um, I I have people who may not actually like, share, or comment on that content, but they are remembering some of the things I've shared in that content and talking to their friends about it. And before you know it, I am receiving messages in my inbox from people who are talking to someone else who saw my content, who were told to speak to me. That is the magic of trusted voice because it's adding value to the Maven. And the Maven is now my advocate who is sharing the words that I shared in my content with their audience. And as a result, the audience that they can reach would rather engage with me to do that work than to try to figure it out on their own, and take the time to kind of master the approach that I've implemented. So I want to share maybe one or two stories around how this has played out for me, and hopefully just inspire you to try the same thing in your path of building business. So the first one starts off with this. I was actually meeting with a client. It was a builder in the Palm Beach area, and he was actually brainstorming. He and I were brainstorming some content ideas for his website portfolio. And as a result, he was beginning to share with me that he was working on building this beautiful estate on the water, and how that collaboration of this estate that he's building was working with a pretty well renowned architect. And that began to just open the doors for him to say, you need to speak to this architect because he would benefit from some of the work that you're doing for my company. And so he then went to the architect and told him that his website needed work and that this architect needs to contact Mike Gonzalez. And in that, he introduced me to the architect. We sat down in a meeting and I was able to just share with the architect some of the value that I was creating for this builder's organization. And as a result, I immediately won that opportunity to add value to that architect and rebuild his website and position him as an authority online to really match the reputation he had already built in person. Another example is I was actually walking down Worth Avenue one day, and I was walking past the Starbucks. And if you're familiar with the area, it's on that 150 Worth area. And I ran into a friend I hadn't seen in a long time, and we were just kind of making small talk. And then he introduces me to someone he was actually having coffee with at that moment. And the words he used to introduce me framed how this guy would begin to basically understand the value I created going forward. And some of the words he described me as is one of the smartest guys I know. He's an expert marketer and he works with startups and he helps them build and market their apps. And so that language was actually language that one was kind of observed and also partly given because of my association with the topics and how I'm always trying to add value to everyone I run into. And so they're learning from some of the things that I'm learning and sharing those learnings with their audience. And that is what helped create this reputation or file folder in their mind of what I do and the value I create. And that's really only possible through content. And so a lot of people think of content as, constantly making videos or constantly making podcasts like this, but really it's a combination of many things. It's what you say when you're having coffee with a friend. It's what you say at a chamber event when you're presenting. It's what you're saying on your podcast. It's what you're posting on social media. It's all of those things together that begin to shape your point of view on a certain topic. And for me, it is a combination of continual improvement and challenging the status quo mixed with marketing and user experience. Like all of those things together, I speak to. And so he had engaged with that content in different ways over, conversations we've had and some of the content I've created online. And in that, he felt confident to share that point of view with his friend. Well, immediately from there, I receive a follow up from his friend, inviting me to lunch. We sit down, he shares his business idea and what he's working on. And then that led to a collaboration opportunity which allowed me to add value to his business. But both of these scenarios are really prime examples of how word of mouth marketing is the primary path in which I win business. And that is the key opportunity in this particular season of the economy and in the market that we're in. We're in a values driven economy where there is an outcome, there's a world that your buyer wants to live in. And they're looking for people who are on the journey to create the same world. And when you can begin to share your point of view of the world you're creating, and you can relate to some of the challenges, the journey, the routines, the threats, the opinions, all of those little nuances that your audience is on, then you're going to do two things. One, you're going to identify advocates, people who are going to become your advocates. You're going to give them the words to say about how you are creating that world that your audience wants to live in. And now they're going to share tangible things that are going to add value to your audience. And that audience that you're reaching is actually through a trusted voice. Many people think when they're creating content that they're actually speaking to their buyer, but most often you're speaking to your referral source. There's a gentleman named Chris Walker who I love to follow on LinkedIn. He's a powerhouse when it comes to B2B marketing and RevOps. And he's also pioneering different frameworks of how to really measure the ROI of marketing. But one of the things that he was expressing was that he produces a podcast fairly regularly. And through the, I would say, volunteered attribution, where customers are saying how they may have found his business, he's discovering that a high percentage of his viewers, of his clients, actually are coming from the content he creates on LinkedIn and through his podcast. And it's not necessarily the podcast in isolation that's driving the business. It's this collective series of content that he's created and point of views that he holds that people in organizations are watching and learning. And those mavens inside of his organization, those mavens inside of organizations are bringing it to their teams. And because of his consistent delivery of value, those teams are deciding, rather than doing it ourselves, let's just hire his company to do it. And that is really exemplifying what Trusted Voice is all about. It's about understanding the subjects that you can speak to that connect to this product and service that you offer. It's then understanding the aspiration or the world that your customer wants to live in. And you're expressing how you are helping them create that world by understanding their routines, their threats, and their opinions or their point of view. And then through that, you're giving advice that's going to help them get closer to their aspiration. And as a result of that, you are becoming a trusted voice by speaking to the voices that your buyer is in relationship with, who then become your advocates to make a referral or introduction to you. So that is the heart of what Trusted Voice is all about. I'm excited to dive into very tangible examples of how many have become trusted voices. And in this show, I'm going to be interviewing different thought leaders on how they have become a trusted voice in very tangible ways that they're employing this framework in the work they do.